of him in University of Groningen. So, okay, I didn't know. So now we have our next speaker. That's also Irene, but Irenejanze. And yes, and she is working on more on also on the historical side, but also the geographical aspects of it and the stories behind waste and development in the historical part and geographical one. So she is an artist here in Amsterdam. She had her atelier here on the Zuidas for many years. So here just on the opposite of the university. And so for the ones who are going to have dinner tonight with us, it's on that space. The atelier is not there anymore, but on the same space now there is the restaurant.
Yeah, the restaurant is still there.
Is there? Okay. So I like to give the floor to Irenejanze.
Well, let's see. Am I understandable? Loud enough. Het spijt me, Milan, that I'm not using the... So I talk a bit here.
Okay.
Because, yeah, as an artist, we do everything a little bit different. Can I put just a little bit at your space so you can look at the waste? Well, thank you all for coming, and I also want to talk... Oh, wow, this is a bright light.
long wire, so you can use it.
But do you understand me, or do I have to use the... I'm trained as a performer, so I should be able to speak very loud. Yeah, well, what am I going to talk about? It's in fact the same issue as what Irene, where is she, mentioned, what to select as an artist. Because I also travel all over the world to go to places and see what is left behind. I call that leftover landscapes. And I make kind of sample maps out of it. And I have 1/4 of the project over here, that's Amsterdam. The others were in New York or in Berlin or somewhere else, in Rome. I'll talk about that later. And because it's about places and waste, I wanted to show you what you all said as yesterday, what places and specific locations generate about waste and what this waste tell us, maybe. And so I first will take you also a long time ago to the Dam Square in the center of the Netherlands at the marriage of our Crown Prince, which is now our King. That was 02/02/2002, and the dam was divided. It is a public square, but for this occasion, because the palace is on the dam was divided with a fence. And we had waste that the public left behind and waste that the royal entities left behind. Well, for the public, and I knew two very charming assistants now, because we do everything by hand still. Could you put this up on one side?
Okay.
James will recognize it a little bit. It is an outcrop and a sample map. I hope you can see it, and otherwise you can see it in the break. So we have a little bit of waste. This is an impression. Here you have the dam square, and this is the... Can you see it? This is the dam square from above, and it's on scale. And here you can see a little bit of the wave of waste, what was consisting out of... Could you hold that up a little bit? It's out of orange hats, shish kebab screwdrivers, it's papers, also some red, white and blue flags. This is 1/4, it's all 1/4 all the time, I realize, 1/4 of the project, 1/4 of the sample. I rebuilt the whole thing in my studio, and thank you very much. This is drawn here, so you can relate to it a little bit. And this is the hand, so you can imagine it's 4 times this amount. Then you can go back. You see here how much it is in the wave that was left behind by the public, and you can see here it's this little dot. So you can imagine the enormous amount of orange, predominantly orange waste that was generated. Now, the royal entities, I have to say, produced far less waste. They were far more clean, and it were little islands of, I I have it here. It's only a small sample because it's stolen along the time that I tell this story. So it's very sacred now, I think. They have little letters of, you can see it a little bit. I will show it around. Golden and yellow papers. The yellow, you have to take my word for it, because over the time it changed a little bit out of color. This is the samples here of the royal waste. Well, thank you very much. Very precious. Well, what does that tell us about waste? Because when I sampled it and I looked at the orange color, I was wondering where this orange color comes from. And now I have to look some English words up. I hope, James, you will correct me, because we also have an orange lion in our, is this called a coat of arms? In our coat of arms. And you can see it on the paintings of Vermeer, that you have this orange lion there already, which is in 1600, and there is this color of orange, and this is the Republic, of course, of the Netherlands, but it is a kind of symbol for the Netherlands. And then I thought, why? Because our flag is red, white and blue, and if you do a soccer game, everybody is with these orange lines on their head and waving with orange things, and I find it a bit strange, as a matter of fact. And so I looked it up, and it went all the way back, these orange lions and golden lions, to the age of the chivalry. So the age of the knights, about 1100. When I ask people where the orange colors generate from, they usually say it's from the House of Orange, because our House of the King, the family of the King, is called the family of Orange, and that is related to William of Orange. And William of Orange is a kind of Osama bin Laden. It was a revolutionary who took up the arms and produced at the end the Republic of the Netherlands. And they think, well, because it's orange, he had a little region called Orange en France, and that's where the color originates from. But it can't be true, because it's already there in 1100. You can find still the low-ranked knights had the orange colors, lions in their banners, and the high-ranked, the most high-ranked knights had the golden and yellow ones on their banners. And although the family of our king existed already in that time, I looked that up, I researched that, had no relation whatsoever. So the artist here, Ariane van Walsum, she is a textile artist, if I can translate it. I don't want to be impolite, but I don't know the English. And she works a lot with color, and she said, well, you have to look at what is growing in the Netherlands. And indeed, in the south of the Netherlands, that is Belgium as well, there is a little plant called madder, and that is meekrap in het Nederlands, and it was very abundant in Flanders and the south of the Netherlands. And if you squeeze the root, you get a very bright red color. And the red color, if you mix it with another plant called wouw, and that is, I think, weld. Do you know what weld is? I hope you know what weld. It's a little plant. And if you mix it, you get this bright orange color. That was a relatively cheap color. And so it's very cheap because you had all these plants. And then the golden colors, which was for the higher ranked knights, of course, are very expensive. So they had the golden lions. And then, of course, they had also this yellow to mix. Now the orange, if you mix it with the yellow, with the little plants, and thank you for the connotation, Ariane, if you do that, it will fade away after a while. And when Napoleon entered, we had to use a lot of flags. And we had, of course, oranje, blanc, bleu, so the flag was supposed to be orange, but they had to re-dye it, and so they took red instead. And we have a little orange banner on the side. Now, these knights who had that went into the Middle Ages and went into the military code. So the high military code got a golden and yellow lion, and on their helmets and things like that, and the low military got the orange ones. Now, in the old days, of course, the people had no color at all. They went on wool or jute, and it was grey, and grauw in Dutch, for the Dutch people here, means people. That is where it comes from, because they were not allowed to have any color. But when times goes on, also still in the Middle Ages, the highest military rank was assigned to the king. And until recently, our king or queen was the head of the military, until we all know that Prince Bernhard had this Lockheed affair and they were not allowed anymore to be the head of the military. But still in the colors you see this division of the king, head of the military, which is golden and yellow liver, and the people, which is dominantly orange. Now, you might think, well, there is a gap between the rich and the poor, and it's getting wider. And indeed, our family of the king is very rich, and maybe the people becomes poor. But in 800 years, in color, the people stepped up. So the people are now wearing the low-rank knight's colors, and the gap between, in color, the people and the royalty is in fact a little bit smaller. Now, this is what I had to say about the color in Amsterdam. And then it's about places and ways, so I also brought, which they didn't recognize, of course, so it was cleaned this morning because they said, oh, all those ways. I also brought something here. I don't know if you can see it, but you can see it no, this doesn't mean. You can see it in the break. And it's about, it's Rome. I went there after the Pope, Jean-Paul II, died and was buried. And I collected and also made a sample map, what was left behind. And yeah, it is, as I call it, it's not sacred waste, but I call it the Roman Catholic thrown away identity of the day. And but I brought it especially for you, Irene, because I thought maybe you reconnect. I can tell you all about this in the break, and I thank you all for your attention.